Meeting, please.
God, I'm nervous. Zoot. Everybody loves Zoot. For ordinary people, that would be a wonderful way to be remembered. But Zoot was certainly not ordinary, not by any stretch of the imagination. My introduction to Zoot was with Georgie Fame, where Zoot was making a guest appearance on his album. Consequently, we hooked up, so 30 years ago, I became a relative newcomer to the not-so-teenage rocking combo. One of my first dates with Zoot was in Germany, where upon landing, Zoot perused the older buildings and loudly proclaimed, "I see our boys have missed those." The last time I was in this room was for the passing of my mum. My mum adored Zoot, and unbeknown to me, spoke regularly with him when Ronnie was first taken poorly. Well, I don't know about you, but there's far too many funerals for me these days. In fact, the last one I went to, I felt myself wandering off a bit. I got my phone out and said to this woman next to me, "Have you got the Wi-Fi password for in here?" She looked at me and said, "You awful, insensitive, vile specimen of a human being." I said, "Is that upper or lower case in?" What do you reckon, mate? Need some more work? Yeah. In all seriousness, Zoot, wonderful voice, wonderful love of harmony, wonderful bloke to work with, the list goes on. In these contemporary times where success is measured in terms of celebrity, recognisability and opulence, but for a lot of us in the arts, success is measured on the level of our work. And there is no greater achievement than the love, respect and admiration of your fellow peers. Zoot had this in abundance. I would like to thank Marisa for the honour of allowing me to express this, and to finish up with a wonderful Duke Ellington quote, "We loved him madly." Zoot, we certainly did.
Thanks, Ronnie. Just before my two penneth, Marissa's asked me to read out a message from Andy Summers, who would have been here, but he's touring Australia at present. And Andy says, "Zoot was a lifelong friend. We met each other when we were 15 years old and spent many years playing together, being together, and going through all kinds of adventures. Our friendship lasted through everything, and it's a terrific loss not to have him about. There are so many memories, so many gigs, so many laughs, so many situations, so many people. We really shared a great deal in our young lives, the madness of those early days and the times we were living in. I'm very happy for those invincible memories. He was a great musician, personality, and dear friend. I will miss you, laddie." Nice one, Andy. I'll follow that. This is my two penneth. I first met Zoot Money in 1958. I knew him as George, and I knew him as George for about 40 years, until we started doing occasional duo spots and gigs, when he started referring to us as Gert and Daisy. And for the last 20 years, that's exactly what we called each other, Gert and Daisy. He had to be Gert because it sounded more butch, apparently. But he liked to be called Zoot, so today I think we should refer to him by, should we call it his preferred proname? So that's what I'll do. So there we were in 58. There was a bunch of us ex-skifflers trying to put together a rock group, which we did. It was called the Stormers. Zoot was on vocals, I was then on lead guitar, and we worked it pretty successfully for about a year and stayed mates after it broke up. And then in late 61, Zoot and another mate turned up at my mum's house in Bournemouth, wanting me to join as piano player, a new group they were putting together. And that turned out to be the first version of Zoot Money's Big Roll Band. Now, you all know the story about where that name came from, Zoot mishearing the Chuck Berry line in Johnny Be Good. Well, that actually took place that day. In fact, I've still got the 78 that I was playing on my wound-up gramophone that day. But maybe if I'd changed the needle, history would have been a little bit different. We did the first gig of the Big Roll Band on Sunday, the 12th of November 1961 at the Downstairs Club in Bournemouth. It was only an amateur semi-pro band, but it was streets ahead of the competition, and that was down to Zoot Money, not just his flamboyant showmanship out the front, although that was there. He widened our musical compass beyond the standard rock and roll material that everybody was using. He sang like a jazz singer. I mean, the guy was 19 years old, and he made us swing like we didn't know we could. Quite incredible. 62, 3 of us left because we didn't want to go pro. And then 6 years ago, Zoot approached me to rejoin the Big Roll Band after what he called 57 years of furlough. Unpaid, I might add. And we did our last gig at the Bull's Head on the 9th of March. By then, Zoot was so weak he couldn't walk through from the bar to the music room unaided, so I led him in on my arm. And as we were walking down the aisle through the punters, he looked up at the band and said, "If they start playing Here Comes the Bride, they're fired." He tried a few licks with his right hand, but his arm was too weak. It was hurting too, and his left hand. But the moment he opened his mouth and started to sing, the old Zoot Money came out, and it was that for the whole gig. In fact, it was the best gig we'd done for a long time. I think the whole band would recognise that. So farewell, old buddy. You always said that Catholics get the best seats in heaven, so now you're there. Put in a word for a seat at the back for an old Protestant sideman. Ta-da, Mush. I miss you.